Welcome back to Black, White, and Blue in the South. This is part 2 of Did You Know? The Big Bad Budget Boondoggle. In the last episode, Bill and Jamil covered the first day of the South Carolina House budget debate. If you missed it, we highly recommend that you go back and listen to episode 56. Now we join Bill and Jamil as they launch into a wild and crazy day 2.
Day 2 was 13 hours long. Wow. Right? And day 2 opened in a very bizarre manner. So you're not going to be able to really hear what happens. So I'm going to truly ask you to go to our YouTube page and watch this part, but we'll explain to you what you saw. But this was something so bizarre, we got to spend some time and discuss what we saw.
Okay.
So this is how day 2 opened.
Members and guests will please rise as we're led in prayer by the chaplain, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
A word for today is Psalm 40.
Okay. All right. So it was very quiet for the listener, but Jamil is cracking up. All right, Jamil, can you gather yourself together enough to explain what you just saw?
Did he not just spray something in his mouth?
Okay, so there's a 100-year-old chaplain that was called to give the opening prayer.
He was on the ark. He's older than that.
So he gets, and this guy is about 4'10". He makes Yoda look tall.
Yeah.
And then the clerk turns to the chaplain. The chaplain opens his mouth in the air, and the clerk sprays something into his mouth.
The chaplain couldn't spray his own stuff in his mouth?
Apparently not. He needed the assistance of the clerk of the chamber to spray some sort of throat spray into the chaplain's mouth before he takes the podium. And this was really tough. I put these audios through a system that tries to extract and does voice recognition and pulls like captions out of it. And very softly, and I had to turn the volume way up, it sounded like the speaker pro tem, his name is Representative Pope, said, that was kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Just, like, you can't really hear it, but the AI that did the extraction of the words picked it up and wrote, that was kind of freaky on the screen.
Yeah.
So that was how day 2 opened. And again, you've got to go check this out on our YouTube channel or follow us on social media. We'll be sure to play a clip of what we just saw here. But that's how day 2 opened.
Let me just gather my bag now.
You should have seen the enema that performed later on in the day. It really got wild. All right, so day 2's drama kicked off with a budget section related to the South Carolina Sea Grant Consortium.
There they go with that.
What's the Sea Grant Consortium? From the website, it's a university-based program that generates and provides science-based information to support the wise use and conservation of South Carolina's coastal resources.
Makes sense.
And create a sustainable economy and environment.
Yes.
So with this, Jordan Pace gets back up, and this is getting close to the end of hearing from Jordan Pace, by the way. He's dominated so far, but then he turns it over to his henchmen and henchwomen. Jordan Pace wants to defund the Sea Grant Consortium. Let's hear it. He combines objections to DEI and climate alarmism into one amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And welcome back, everybody, bright and early. This is to reduce to zero the $1.3 million in the Sea Grant Consortium. And I would ask you all, do you know what the Sea Grant Consortium is? And think about that for a minute, what they do. If you don't, that's okay. Primarily what they do is facilitate a good bit of federal funding. $4.5 million is federal funding, primarily to study climate change, and they call it climate resilience, but effectively, it's climate change. So here's one of their studies. I can put it up on the screen if you want. Climate Action Engagement Academy for Minority and Women-Owned Small Businesses, Fostering Economic Empowerment in the Midst of Evolving Environment. They have a whole section on their website about hurricanes and extreme winds and sea level rise and climate change. They help municipalities, should they want to do this, do climate change studies for how they can prepare for rising sea levels, primarily on the coast, but really all over the state. They do some other non-climate change related things a little bit, mostly through the universities. So the universities could do this on their own. We don't need to facilitate climate change action.
How they gonna do it? You cut the money.
Support that with this $1.3 million that we could roll into, again, an 18% tax cut for everybody. So simple as that. I'd have to ask for your support, and I'll happy to take questions.
Yeah, they want to cut tuition support for these universities. So what are they going to fund these research grants with?
Exactly.
So,
and then they said that it's, of course, you go and you find the thing that you think, again, is a trigger, women and minorities, missing everything else that they are doing.
Against the women, the minorities, the gays. He's got a whole list of problems. So next, Democrat Representative Leon Stravrinakis from Charleston.
Okay.
He gets up to the well to speak about the Sea Grant Consortium, and Republican Representative Kathy Landing, who's also from Charleston. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think the Sea Grant Consortium is important to people in Charleston?
Not a Republican.
I would say yes, even to a Republican in Charleston. It's important. So anyhow, Kathy Landing makes a statement, but again, she makes her statement in the form of...
Did you know?
A question. So here we go. Listen to these two talk about the Sea Grant Consortium.
Would you agree that for the sake of the body, when we need to make a decision about something as important as how our funds are expended on behalf, our taxpayers' funds, are expended on behalf of our state and all of our citizens, would you agree that we need to have kind of a deep dive each time we're looking, especially if we're talking about cutting out an entire agency, as this amendment says? Because it says to delete the whole section, which I'm thinking means delete this whole agency's funding from us.
Yeah, of course, it needs to be a thoughtful process. And you also need to keep in mind, these are real people that, work here, and they have lease obligations. They're in the middle of administering grants that extend out multiple years. Who's going to do all that if you just fire these people summarily on the floor with a amendment that just gets dropped at the last minute, in the middle of a budget process without any planning? Again, complete lack of a thoughtful process on how to manage a state agency, a state, a budget, any of that.
So you can hear that the Democrats and the Republicans are getting real annoyed with these House caucus members.
Yeah, so my statement saying not the Republicans, I should have said not the Freedom Caucus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can see there's an alignment between the Democrats and Republicans when it comes to responsible spending in this budget.
Yeah.
Well, a new villain now arises.
Oh, child. Let me see.
In my opinion, this is the worst of the Freedom Caucus crowd. So I'm setting the stage. This is the arch villain.
Okay.
So far, we've heard a lot from leader Jordan Pace. We've heard from old man Joe White. Mm-hmm. We've heard from Bible thumper Josiah Magnuson.
Bless their heart.
Now we hear from Representative April Cromer from Anderson County.
My God.
So April Cromer gets up to speak, and you can just feel the Cruella de Vil in her. Let's listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you all for being here today to discuss the taxpayer money. As proposed, and it's been mentioned a lot, we are trying to cut money for the taxpayer and return money, send money back home to the people who earn it and who deserve to have the money back in their pocketbook to make the decisions of how they want to spend their money. This department does not help anyone in the upstate. I don't know how it helps anyone throughout the state. I've heard a lot of arguments up here and complaining and whining, whatever, about being here today. This is very serious. We are here to talk about taxpayer money. We campaigned on the same premise of our president in D.C. Doge is very, very popular. So I don't see anyone in this chamber outside of a few of us that's trying to cut money, be serious as to why we're here, and be honest about the taxpayer dollar. Another thing that deserves to be mentioned is that we have a supermajority in this state, yet there's a Democrat up here that's explaining and defining where we're going to spend our money. No one's talking about that. The people in here, I hear a lot about social media and everybody trying to, get their clicks or whatever, but the way that we complete our campaign promises is to take this budget seriously and to cut money. And by doing
what I'm
that,
asking you.
I'm saying that the supermajority of people in South Carolina, they have voted. They want their money back. They want to cut the wasteful spending and the crap.
Well, let's just
And if that
start with your
means-
district.
Excuse me, if that means that we stop allowing Democrats in this state to determine where our money is going, then that's what we need to do.
Oh, nothing that I had to say would you be able to play.
I do have a beep button.
But it wouldn't make sense. Nothing.
Yeah, so right off the bat, her biggest argument is to demonize the Democrats.
She has nothing to stand on except for creating some type of volatile situation. We have a Democrat up here telling us how to spend our money. I'm a little confused, but did this young lady understand that Democrats also pay taxes? And some of the money that Republicans would like to tell where it should and shouldn't go, Democrats should be able to tell where their money goes as well? Who made her to tell where the money go, Queen? That's not the way this works. And even if they have a super majority, it doesn't mean you still negate that the principle that you have people who did not vote for you, but you still represent. This is a problem with them once they get elected. They feel like, I'm a Republican, and so my Republican constituents elected me, so I'm just going to think Republican thoughts. Well, what you don't understand is when you get your check, when you get your stipends, those are things that are coming from Republicans, independents, and Democrats.
Well, things got very, very nasty very quick.
Oh, wow.
So up next is Republican Representative David Hiott. He's actually the Republican leader, right? He was voted as leader of the Republicans in the House. He's from Pickens. He tried to ask Representative Cromer a question.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hyatt's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I pass over.
Thank you for taking my questions.
Excuse me.
Have you ever taken government money?
I don't talk
You
to
or your
people who put out.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Hyatt. I'm sorry, ma'am. If you'd speak,
To someone
I got to
who called
speak.
me a pedophile protector. I pass over.
Hold on, Mr. Stravrinakis. I'm sorry. I apologize, Ms. Cromer. If you'll say it in the microphone, I could not hear you.
I said I pass over taking questions from the majority leader who sent text messages calling me a pedophile protector. I will not speak to him.
But yet again, how beneficial is that?
The member speaking does not have to answer questions from any members choose not to. Mr. King is recognized.
So that's truly a part of the rules of the House. If somebody wants to ask you a question, you don't have to entertain them, and you can shoot them right down.
I get that, but in the event that she's ever faced from a constituent a question she doesn't want to answer, that's the same.
It wasn't a question that she didn't want to answer. She didn't want to answer anything from him.
He didn't even get to answer the question.
Did you hear why?
Yes, because he called her a protector of a pedophile.
Do you know what that's in reference to?
Go.
All right, I'm going to put up on the screen. I do my research.
I know you do, Bill.
Here is the tweet, the text message that went out to April Cromer's constituents. And it's basically her in black and white with in the background is a man in gloves and a keyboard.
Yeah.
An anonymous man, and the caption says, April Cromer, covering for predators instead of protecting kids. You know what that's in reference to?
No.
Who is a member of the Freedom Caucus, a co-founder?
That everyone's still quiet about.
Representative R.J. May from Lexington, who is in that room, by the way.
Quiet as a church mouse.
In that room. He didn't raise a voice once the entire 21 hours. But he cast his vote. He is under federal investigation for child pornography. We talked about it just about every other episode.
Yeah,
you can go back and find it. But anyhow, as a co-founder of the Freedom Caucus, they have remained quiet about one of their own being under investigation like this. So apparently some text message went out. Didn't really see who it came from, but she claims
that it
came from the South Carolina GOP leadership, which was that Representative David Hiott. So she made a claim that says, I am not going to take questions from a guy that calls me a pedophile protector, and then passed over him.
Yeah, she did.
Oof. Well, so he did not get to speak.
He should have passed that question to somebody else.
But Democrat Representative Beth Bernstein from Richland takes Cromer to task, but Cromer maintains her obnoxiousness.
Yeah.
To progress, you have to learn to compromise. And what I hear from you and other people who, I don't even want to say the Freedom Caucus, but other people who are in your caucus, is you don't want to compromise. You don't want to work with Democrats. I think it's important in this body that we learn to work together and try to find things that we can agree on.
Sound reasonable?
Well, I have actually shared amendments with Democrats. I've signed on, and I've worked with Democrats.
But, you know, I've been a recipient of your criticism. You have criticized Representative Stravrinakis for being subcommittee chair people who represent, we only have 2, maybe 3 subcommittee chair people out of all of the subcommittees.
Well, that's 3 too many, according to the people of South Carolina.
No, it's not, because you're saying that 100% of people in South Carolina, or the super majority, which is not a super majority, are Republicans, and that's not the case.
Go ahead, say it. You have thoughts in that mind of yours.
I knew that one was nasty from a long time ago.
And just even her voice, how grating is that voice?
I know she is hateful, but
she just gets up there and whines.
Yeah, she has been hateful for a long time. But let me just say what the old people would say: every dog gonna have a day.
Now, we had heard about Cromer before. Remember, we were talking with Jessica Spearman.
I was thinking about Jessica, every word that lady said. I was just thinking about
Jessica was telling us about how she had to testify during the transgender care debates from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And about her own transgender child. And she had to sit in front of April Cromer and said that April Cromer was making faces, rolling her eyes, being extraordinarily disrespectful. This is a lady who mentally has not gotten past high school.
Yeah.
She is part of the Mean Girls cheerleading squad, and she has not graduated from that point.
Or she was bullied her whole time, and now this is her way to take retaliation.
You just look at her face. She's always been the bully.
You think so?
She has always been the bully.
She's been at the wrong school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the first fireworks of the night is the guy that got passed over, Representative Hiott, that Cromer refused to take questions from. He finally got up to speak.
Oh,
and boy, did he lay out. Now, we're still supposed to be talking about the Sea Grant Consortium, by the way.
Oh, God.
I don't know if you'd forgotten the thread.
Yeah, I thought we transitioned.
No, we're still on that amendment. This is how the day is going. So now we're in hour 75.
I would get nothing done. Gosh.
But Mr. Hiott is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I wasn't planning on coming up here until the previous speaker decided she wouldn't take my questions. And in my 21 years, I've never seen that, but that's okay. I'll tell you that I'm not going to give a campaign speech because I'm not seeking re-election. If you add up, and I verified this with Ways and Means staff, if you add up every single amendment that the Freedom Caucus has put up, some of them they pulled down, but if you add up every single amendment the Freedom Caucus put up, or going to put up, they've put up $100 million in cuts total. They're talking about $1 billion here. They're going to cut $1 billion. It may not even be $100 million. It may be less than that. So where's the cuts? These cameras. They talk about everything needs to be streamed. It's not transparent enough. They voted against the ETV budget.
You can hear them laughing in the background.
You can't show something when you don't have the materials to show them on. Don't stand up here and say you want to have transparency and then cut the people that are showing it to you. And they've done it every year. I'm surprised ETV's still in business. I don't agree with everything ETV shows, but they do a great job showing what we do back home to the people in our districts. And my gosh, you can't do that. Several people have already touched on the fact, these PPP loans, we needed the government then. My company took it, but we paid it back as well. We needed the government then, but we don't need them now. We got what we want. You can't have what you want. Yeah, we're all for it. We wanted to cut tuition mitigation from Clemson University yesterday, but by God, we took it several years ago with our kids. They didn't stand up here and tell you that, did they? It was okay for them, but it's not okay for you. I'm not running again, so don't accuse me of giving a campaign speech. I'm sick and tired of this crap coming up here and making a farce of what the state of South Carolina deserves and needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, whoever gets an applause at a budget debate.
Mm-hmm.
The statement was made that this budget is full of crap.
That was Cromer.
Their words exactly. Law enforcement's not crap to me. Our school teachers are not crap to me.
Mm-hmm.
Our disabled and special needs kids are not crap to me.
Mm-hmm.
You can get up and clap if you want.
I'm almost there.
Our children in DSS custody are not crap to me.
Come on, DSS. Oh, my goodness.
Our students in public schools are not crap to me. Our blind and disabled kids are not crap to me.
He's going to go through the whole budget now.
Everyone that has a job and paying state taxes is not crap to me. Our state employees are not crap to me.
Mm-hmm.
You can call it crap. That's not what I call it. I'm appreciative of what they do. Now, if you don't like them, that's fine. It doesn't matter how many amendments we give you. You're going to vote against this budget tomorrow or whenever we get through. We know that. We know that. But quit coming up here and making a farce of what's going on in this process to take care of the people of South Carolina. And I don't care if you ever speak to me again, never take one of my questions. That don't matter to me. I'm on my way out. But dadgummit, state of South Carolina deserves better than what we're seeing right now.
Good job, sir.
Standing, oh, look at them all stand.
Look at her. Mm-hmm.
Nobody was standing for Cromer.
No.
They stand for this guy, though.
Yeah. They probably want to stand on her, not for her.
And she's just sitting there looking like she sucked on a lemon.
You know, but somebody who got that much hate in them, there is something missing. There's a void that needs to be filled.
It ain't my job to fill it.
I don't want to feel it either, but I don't want to pump any additional life into it. But you just can't wake up with that kind of hate.
So when Cromer said basically that Democrats don't even deserve to have a voice in this debate, a lot of people took that to heart.
Yeah.
So up next is Representative Justin Bamberg. Guess where he's from?
Bamberg.
Bamberg. That makes it easy. So Justin Bamberg gets up and talks about the Democrats' right to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bamberg's recognized. Mr. Bamberg.
Wait a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So I want you to remember him because there was another committee meeting. You remember, you know the one I'm talking about?
I know the story. We'll cover that in the next episode. That was just classic.
I loved it. Okay, go.
We need to get rolling, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out a couple of things because I've sat and I've listened to everything that's been talked about. And if you haven't noticed, members, we have a number of young people sitting in the balcony today watching.
Can you believe that?
They showed they behind with company in front of them.
I want to draw everybody's attention to that.
Shame.
See,
little girls from the 4-H club are up there.
Watching the debates that we're having, watching the last hour and a half, the last 2 hours. When they leave here, they're going to have an impression of what this place is and what this place represents. And I think that's important to note. Up here, yeah, there are two parties. You got Republicans, you got Democrats. And we heard a lot of talk earlier about this concept of a supermajority. And it's used as a weapon to try to attack Republicans in this body that use common sense, that are willing to work not just with each other, but with everyone in here. And to the young people up there, I want you to understand that majority of this body does take this place serious. Majority of this body does understand that the party label that someone has isn't always the most important thing. We heard and we're talking about the budget, and the budget is done during the Ways and Means process. Well, I want to let everybody know there is a Democrat in this body that serves on House Ways and Means. And in my view, out of every single member in this body, Republican, Democrat, black, white, urban representative, rural representative, this man has earned the right to not only serve on Ways and Means, but to serve in this body and do the people's work. And I want to point out Representative Lonnie Hosey, Barnwell County's finest, 2 tours in Vietnam. You see, while sometimes in politics, some people talk about service, when in this body their actions don't speak and do of service, we get grandstanding. We get hypocrisy. Representative Lonnie Hosey, Sergeant Hosey, United States Marine Corps, 2 tours in Vietnam. And on 2 occasions, for those of you who don't know, he had to get carried out that jungle. And he came back to, during that era, a country that still didn't like him because of the color of his skin. And he stayed a good human being. He was committed to his community. He fought for the things that he was passionate about, things that people in Barnwell County and Orangeburg County and Allendale County care about and need. And he's been coming up here for what, 20 years? 26 years he's been coming up here faithfully doing his job, not just for his district, but for the people of this state and for anybody. And I've said something about this before, for anybody to come up here and play politics and tote this supermajority thing as though just because somebody is a Democrat, they're not capable, qualified, and haven't earned the right to serve in any capacity, bro, we ain't gonna do that. Because when you play that card, you're throwing shade at Lonnie Hosey, who is a hero, who's earned every right to serve in this body, who's earned every right based on his dedication, his talent, and his work ethic to serve on House Ways and Means. And Representative Hosey, I want to personally thank you for everything that you have done in this state and for this country. We need to handle business.
Oh, I could listen to him all day.
Ooh, he did that.
I could listen to great moment of positivity, calling out a fellow member.
That's right. He cleaned that up for them young ladies that were watching.
All right. So we're going to move away from the Sea Grant group.
Oh, God, we were still there.
And we're going to talk about a truly bizarre moment that happened on day 2 of the budget hearing. We're going to hear from a new member of the Freedom Caucus. His name is Jay Kilmartin from Lexington.
Oh, Jay, did he know he was getting into? I mean,
he's Freedom Caucus, so he offered a unique budget cutting amendment. Let's listen to what he has to offer.
Okay.
So I have an amendment, and not picking on parks, recreations, and tourism, because I hadn't considered the Sea Grape Coalition when I wrote this amendment. No, I didn't check with the smart people in the room that created the budget. No, I didn't come to any committee meetings to get permission or make suggestions. This is a simple budget or a simple amendment, and I want to keep it kind of lighthearted, but I want to keep it lighthearted. After budget week last year, I got home, of course, exhausted. My wife said, "How'd you guys do?" And I said, "Well, we didn't get anything cut from the budget." And she said, "Well, not even $1?" I said, "No, not even $1." "Well, what did you do?" "Well, we spent an extra $1 billion, I'm sorry."
Boy, he's getting browbeat by his wife.
So this year, here we are. I propose we take 10 cents away from the stop laughing, Jermaine. I'd like to cut 10 cents from the budget of this department. We have a supermajority here. I see a lot of your Twitter posts. We need a Doge in South Carolina. We want to lower property tax. We want to lower taxes across the board. And conventional thought is, how are we going to replace those taxes? You know, do we raise the sales tax on everybody? Because that's kind of voluntary. You can choose not to buy milk. I don't think that's the answer, replacing taxes. So this is a simple amendment to see if we can take 10 cents out of the budget this year. You can go on Twitter afterwards and say you cut part of the budget. That would be truthful if you take 10 cents
out. I would love it if you would support this amendment. I just got to see if it can get done. We're going to start small. She said maybe $1 this year, and I said that's kind of a lot, honey. I don't think they can live without $1. So it's 10 cents. I'll take one question.
You have many questions, and I'll find out. I'll recognize them for you, Mr. Kilmartin. Mr. Beach is recognized first.
Good, sir. Representative Kilmartin. I just want to be clear. How did you come up with the 10 cents? How did you arrive at 10 cents?
Where did I come up with 10 cents? Well, yesterday we voted to give our university system $53 million tuition mitigation. And then we found out later that was mostly a made-up number. So I thought, I'll just make a number up.
Damn.
$53 million made-up number, 10 cents taken away, made-up number. So thanks for asking.
So wasting no time, we get to hear from our favorite Justin Bamberg again, and he has to state the obvious.
Come on, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just point out to the talk of fiscal conservatism and the quote-unquote seriousness of this amendment here, everyone needs to understand that in the efforts to make a point in the realm of government spending, the South Carolina Freedom Caucus just spent more than 10 cents for the copies of paper that had to be printed and the ink that had to be used in this chamber and the time and expense associated with every single amendment. So even if we voted for this and we cut 10 cents from the budget and put it back into the general fund, we're now in the hole hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So on behalf of the taxpayers in District 90, thank you for wasting our tax money with this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's exactly what it was. A waste.
It really was. Theatrics and performative speeches. That's all the House Freedom Caucus has to offer.
And he asked one question in his presentation that I thought, if you cut the taxes and you keep your expenses going up, how are you not going to run into a gap? What is the plan? And then I thought about the reserve fund, but you got to watch how you spend the reserve fund. So what do they plan to do with this whole bright idea?
Those are details for the smarter people. They're the experts. They're listening to their constituents instead, who know all about the inner workings of budgeting.
Golly.
So you have to ask, and again, this goes back to a question I asked earlier, why are they spending their time even debating these things? Like, I just would have let Kilmartin get up there, say his stupid stuff, then you vote it down, move on. But instead they engage in debates. Why? Well, Representative Micah Caskey gets up and explains why they are debating this stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to address something very briefly because unfortunately I have to. And that is, why are we taking up our time on this amendment? Because an elected member of this body put up an amendment that said, let's take away 10 cents. We've spent more than 10 cents now talking about it. And yet the reality is we have to do that because of the demands of the world that we live in, where people will likely take this vote and they'll hold it up. They'll hold it up as a banner of their commitment to true conservatism, of fiscal restraint, and they'll say anybody who didn't support this, well, they don't want to be serious about government. They didn't vote for my 10-cent amendment. In fact, a 10-cent amendment they wouldn't stand and answer serious questions about. It seems to me that every time the Freedom Caucus is asked hard questions, they refuse. They take advantage of our rules to go and hide because they don't want to have the discussion that they say they want to have. They don't want to have the thoughtful examination of those points. They want to simply say, well...
Hold on, Mr. Magnuson, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, point of order under Rule 3.6, decorum. We're getting away from, first of all, the germaneness to the topic. We're debating whether to cut 10 cents out of the budget rather than talking about caucuses, and we're also getting into impugning the motives of people in this chamber. So I'd ask for the member to... All
right, Mr. Caskey, do you have a response to that?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of responses to that. I can understand why Mr. Magnuson would be utterly embarrassed at the things that he and his caucus
do. All right, Mr. Caskey, let's just
All right.
That's the point of order and not make political speeches.
He didn't have that point of order when April Cromer got up there and had us forget that we were talking about the. No. We went like, well, wait a minute, what are we talking about again?
Because that's his girl. He's not going to criticize his own.
Oh, God.
Well, hey, we've got Representative Bauer back with a second amendment that she offered, which I liked.
Okay.
So I want you to pay attention to her speech, and then you tell me what her proposal is.
Okay.
All right.
I don't watch a lot of TV, but what I have been doing is going to the Senate Finance Constitutional meetings. If you have not been attending those to watch the decorum and the actions of our current SC Treasurer, you might be quite appalled by how he's been acting in those meetings. But since we last spoke of it last year, we've learned a whole lot more about the $1.8 billion fiasco. And I can tell you, if you have not been paying attention, none of it is reassuring. Well, just a year ago, we did pass the $3 million to hire an external auditor. We've spent $4 million on attorney fees to defend our state. We are now close to $16 million protecting ourselves from that office. We're now under investigation from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Every month this drags on, we are burning through hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I believe at its core, this is about competency and honesty. We were told by Treasurer that the $1.8 billion, that it was real money, that he could withdraw it from the bank, it was cash, we're making interest on it, but that was a lie. I ask you, are you really okay with the state's top banker being unable to account for $1.8 billion that he didn't even realize was real or not? And then after learning the truth, he continued to lie in front of the Senate. Instead of taking responsibility, he pointed fingers, he's been combative, evasive, and he's outright attacked legislators. Again, if you've attended those meetings or you have not watched them, go back and watch them. At one point, he even threw a pen before storming out of a room. South Carolinians deserve better, and they shouldn't have to wait until the next election to get it. So, colleagues, I think we know enough now. Maybe last year was not quite enough, but I think we know enough. It's time to send a clear message, and I urge you to support this amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So what was her amendment?
He need to step down. Where she want him to go? What did she recommend?
She never stated what her amendment was. Now, everybody had it in front of them on the screens or whatever, but in her speech, she never actually said what she wanted.
And I formulated, she was asking
him to step down. But that's not a budget amendment.
No.
Her budget amendment was to change the salary of the state treasurer's office to $1.
Okay.
Can't make it $0, but you can make it $1.
Okay.
But I think that might have been, I know she's in her second term, but let's call that rookie error.
Yeah.
She never even got up and stated what the amendment was.
So if he doesn't step down, just drop down his pay.
Yeah. So that was her amendment, was to make it $1. Now, what ended up happening is that it was ruled unconstitutional. Somebody challenged it. And that's the second way you can shoot down an amendment. You can, one, vote and table it, or two, raise a point of order and give a reason why this isn't allowed in the budget. There may be a rule or something. And in this case, it does state in the Constitution of the state that you can't change the salary of an active member, an active elected official. Now, you can do so, for the next term, but not during the term that they're serving. So that was just shot down as unconstitutional. Which I wonder, did she not know that it was unconstitutional?
Yeah, I was going to say, she's thorough, though. I don't think she would have missed that.
It's kind of the same question with the other one, with the Pregnancy Crisis Center. Why did she get up there, give an amendment, and then table her own amendment?
I guess I should not always be thinking there's a strategy or there's an intent.
So there may very well have been, but she just may not have known. Or she may have known and decided, well, I'm going to go up there and make a point anyway, just to get the message out, knowing what the outcome would be. So anyhow, I thought that was interesting. So two ways you can get rid of an amendment. One is to vote and table it.
Yeah.
The other is to raise a point of order and object to the amendment as not being germane to the budgetary process or being unconstitutional. So we're going to see that happen here as another member of the Freedom Caucus. This is number 5, Representative Thomas Beach. Actually, this is number 6, Freedom Caucus member from Greenville.
Okay.
He put up an amendment to require that the 10 Commandments be placed in any schools receiving state funds. But before he could even get into it, Representative Spencer Wetmore raised a point of order.
Okay.
So Speaker Merle Smith then had to issue a ruling. Here's how it went down.
Okay.
All right. We haven't made it yet, Mr. Beach, so let me hear from Ms. Wetmore on her point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 5.3, I move, this is non-germane. The principal effect of this ordinance does not seem to deal with funds, but instead deals with posting the 10 Commandments in a clear and legible format. It does not seem to me that that principal effect directly relates to the appropriation of funds.
All right, Mr. Beach, you wish to be heard on this?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. We're discussing the distribution of funds, and we as lawmakers, when we give money to
sounds very passionate.
Departments,
Oh, he sounds confused. He's trying to figure out where he's going.
expectations or even guidelines where they would operate in, and this would be falling into the distribution of those funds.
No, he reaching.
All right, members, listen up. All right, members, please. This is important because this is going how it follows. And for those of you who were here last year, I'm going to go ahead and go through this just quickly, and so maybe it will bring y'all some clarity on how we move forward.
It doesn't.
Pursuant to
It's spoiler alert.
You got to have the principal effect, which is the primary effect of any temporary provision of law and amendments must be directly germane to the appropriation of funds affecting revenue or to the rules, regulations, directives, or procedures relative to the appropriation of funds or affecting revenue for the fiscal year. I had a number of these things over the past 2 years that were brought before, and the magic words of the funds appropriated does not make this germane. And that's how we ruled all last year. So as much as I would agree with this amendment, I find that this amendment is out of order because the principal effect is not the appropriation of funds or the directives, but the displaying of the 10 Commandments in the school. So respectfully, Mr. Beach, I overrule your point of order. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so sometimes, and that's how most of this went down from here on out, that these crazy amendments were thrown up and then they were thrown out.
Yeah.
Now, this next one, I almost didn't include this clip, but it had a question that was asked at the end that justified its inclusion.
Okay.
Freedom Caucus Rep Thomas Beach, Mr. Excitement that you just heard talk about the 10 Commandments, he wants all public libraries to go through some recertification process. And then Representative Gil Gatch, you remember him?
Yes.
He asks a question.
This amendment double checks the recertification. So when the state library is going to distribute funds to county libraries, we have to certify that the county libraries are in compliance with
Not
state
a berry.
law. And what I'm doing here is to recertify, to double check, and make sure that they're staying. And the reason why behind that is because currently our libraries just recently in the area that I serve, in the 3 counties that I serve, minors are able to check out material that is highly lewd, sexual, explicit. I came with material from the literature that a minor checked out, and I wanted for you all to see what that was, but because of the rules of decorum, I wasn't able to show or to read or to put on your desk. If I'm unable to show what these minors are getting their hands here on the floor, then they shouldn't be available to our children. Take any questions.
Mr. Gatch has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Beach. I just wanted to say, did you know that it's really good to hear you as a member of the Freedom Caucus standing against child pornography and protecting our kids from any type of child pornography exploitation. So I'm really glad to hear you say that on the record today.
Oh, God. Zing. Zing. But there should have been a referee keeping count of how many RJ May references were made throughout this budget debate.
Throughout it.
Wow.
He had the nerve to go up there.
Oh, so this next segment actually sets up for another segment right after. So
Okay.
this is the warm-up. And again, it is your friend, April Cromer, and Gil Gatch.
Ms. Cromer is recognized.
So this is just to delete out the last section that's requiring immunizations for children to receive assistance from the government.
You take questions, Ms. Cromer?
Sure.
Mr. Gatch is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Ms. Cromer, for taking my question. What's the fiscal impact of this proviso, or this amendment? I'm sorry.
Or this amendment to remove the qualifications for the Department of Health to provide free immunizations to children? I guess there's not a number. We would have to know.
Okay, so you don't know.
But what you don't, I think you're missing the point of this, is by removing this, you're actually decreasing the scope of government and
By how
the
much?
cost. By not requiring immunizations, what you're trying to do is force families to make medical decisions in order to receive benefits from the government.
Okay, so
Next question, I pass over this guy.
Mr. Magnuson is recognized for a question.
No, it's the lady behind Representative. Oh, if you could have saw her face. When she said I pass over the guy, she went.
I'm done with this guy. I'm done.
Like everybody's looking at her like
she's the queen, dismissed.
You can't even answer
Dismissed.
a question.
No. What's the fiscal impact? You're missing the point.
It's going to reduce.
So now that was a setup.
Okay.
That was the setup because Gil Gatch now gets up to speak and he's going to refer to something called the AAF.
Okay.
The AAF is the American Action Fund.
Okay.
This is a grassroots organization whose goal is to pass liberty bills in states throughout the country, transforming states into beacons of liberty. It's a small group based out of Texas.
Okay.
And Cromer walks away from the podium, so Gil Gatch gets up to talk, and then he gets into it with Jordan Pace. So this is wild.
Okay.
You still have questions?
Cleanup bill.
Ma'am?
It's a simple cleanup bill. I move.
Okay, if you don't want to take questions, if you'll step away.
I took questions. Thank you. I move for passage.
Okay. Okay, let me work through this one. Hold your roll call. So she has stepped away. Ms. Wetmore moved to table. She has withdrawn that and allowed Mr. Gatch to speak on the amendment. So Mr. Gatch is now recognized to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I thought that this was the process. Do you guys remember that? I recall several sermons from this well, from Ms. Cromer, specifically stating that the process is this process right here on the floor. And then I ask about fiscal impact and she won't take any more questions. I'd like to know if this amendment is a part of their fundamental reshaping of the government budget that they proposed, that they dumped on the desk just before we got started on Monday. And if so, how does it impact it? If this is a part of the process, aren't those reasonable questions? Does anybody else think that this is an unserious approach to governing in South Carolina? I also want to give a shout out to the AAF representative Dan in the balcony, the guy who sends out all the nasty text messages to my constituents about me indoctrinating children. I'm so glad that you're here to support your caucus today. Thanks so much for being here.
Mr. Pace is recognized for a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gatch, I think I have an answer. Did you know? On your original question is what is the fiscal impact of this? As Ms. Cromer said, the agency told her that they're not even doing this. So this being a cleanup, there can't be a fiscal impact if they're not doing it. So I would say the fiscal impact is zero.
Are you asking a question? Because I believe I'm the one who answers the questions from this position.
That's why I started with.
I believe Mr. Gatch did say, did you know? So
No,
Mr. Gatch, if you want to respond.
If you're asking me, did I know? No, that's why I asked the question when I was sitting over there at my seat and Ms. Cromer was apt to leave.
Well, did you know I'm happy to inform you that I believe the answer to your question is the fiscal impact is zero.
Well, then I think that you should be coming up here and presenting all of your own amendments then, and stop asking Ms. Cromer to do your business for you, Mr. Pace.
All right, that's enough, I believe. I don't think we have any further questions.
I'm walking away, and I move to table.
Did I not tell you this gets wild? Wild. Grab the popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. We still have 17 more hours to go.
Oh,
grab
my
the popcorn
gosh.
because the roller coaster has reached the top. It is now heading downhill full steam, and it gets ludicrous from here on out.
Okay.
So before we wind down, Representative Cromer gets back to the well.
Oh, Lord.
And we're definitely in high school territory as she fields a question from Representative Caskey.
Do you have any idea what's actually going to happen if this becomes law?
Thank you. Ms. Cromer recognized to answer the question.
Thank you for that. You had a lot of things to say in that statement, and I will say that I have never used the female card, ever. But I will say, I stand right here today, and you just insulted me and talked to me that way. There's a lot that you don't understand clearly just by the comments and statements that you just made, so I will try and school you and teach you the best I can. This amendment right here is bringing money back to our constituents who want their roads fixed. They are tired of us in this body coming together and making backroom deals or deceiving them on the laws that were passed. So what this is going to do right here, and I don't know if I need to talk in a deeper voice so you can understand and hear what I'm saying, but I'm just going to be
It's an elected official.
and say that what this is going to do
Kindergarten.
is going to bring money back to our county so they can make the best decisions that's closest to the roads. And Mr. Speaker, my goodness gracious. Can I go to another person?
Mr. Magnuson is recognized for a question. She's through with you, Mr. Caskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I mean, do the people in her district,
They sent a child. They sent her. They had options. They sent her.
do they know that she is acting like this on their behalf?
Yeah, I don't think
do they know?
Yeah, I don't think they surprised. They sent her. They had options and they chose her.
Well, it gets up even crazier. So she is up later talking on another amendment about DEI training when it comes to training magistrate judges. And we talked about magistrate judges.
Mhm.
They don't get much training.
No.
But she apparently is objecting to anything involving awareness training for these judges. And then Representative Caskey needles her further. They end up somehow talking about mental disorders. See if you can track how that happened. How we got from A to B to C to mental disorders. You ready?
Yes.
I'm giving you an assignment.
Ms. Cromer is recognized on Amendment 81.
And what we're doing here is we're just striking an oversight that prevents our magistrates from having to go through training, which the training in general sounds like a good idea, but it includes language that they would have to undergo sensitivity to gender bias and cultural, racial, and sexual issues. We should not be mandating this on our magistrates. I think that's pretty common sense for our platform. It should be a no-brainer. We should just strike that from the section.
Mr. Caskey is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ms. Cromer, before we broke in a recess, I recall in our discussion, and you didn't want to do it, and you never did it, but you had to pull the woman card or the female card. You were so offended that my questions were going to the heart of the matter that you felt, presumably, so attacked based on your gender that you needed to pull this magic card.
Mr. Caskey, I don't have gender. Gender is a mental disorder, and I assure you I am all woman.
All right. Congratulations.
I know you don't know what a woman is, but here I am.
Do it.
What else you got?
I'm not really sure what to do with that.
I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't.
Well, again, I appreciate your fantasies, but I'm here to talk about the law, Ms. Cromer.
Mr. Speaker, I call point of order of decorum. He is saying that I have a mental disorder by associating me with gender. I do not have a gender. I have a sex, and it is female. Gender dysphoria is a mental illness. I do not have gender dysphoria. I am a female. Thank you.
Ms. Cromer, you've made a point of order. I will tell you, it sounds like you're giving as good as you were getting from Mr. Caskey. If that did occur, I missed that part of it. We know our rules of civility. We keep dancing around them. Mr. Caskey's trying to ask you a question. You can choose to answer it or not, but I believe at this point, focusing on the matter at hand, if you will allow Mr. Caskey to ask his question, then you will have a chance to respond.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not trying to talk about Ms. Cromer's mental disorders. I'm trying to talk about this bill.
Okay, so how did we get to mental disorder, Jamil?
She got trapped. She trapped herself. Because this is what she did.
Like pulled out a big old hammer and hit herself in the head with it.
She did. She went from, wait a minute, I'm pulling the woman card, and then got up there and said, we don't need to have this training that is going to help magistrates. I think it's just one we don't need to have. And so her defense was, when he called her on it, she went, he picking on me, which is, now you're the victim.
Where did the mental disorder come from?
I don't know. The man never said anything.
He didn't. He basically, she got all out of shape because he said the word gender.
He called her on it, though.
Right. He says, you're using gender. She says, I don't have a gender. Gender is a mental disorder.
It is not a mental disorder.
And then she says 5 minutes later, gender dysphoria. She's got things so confused, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
And nobody in her party tapped on her shoulder and said, come here. 'Cause
yeah.
This ain't going well.
Well, look, we have only 82 more clips to go.
Oh, God, I don't have that in me.
But they're stuck right now.
Okay.
And this is almost kind of where we do end up on the budget day.
Okay.
They're stuck on this DEI magistrate training. They're stuck there. They were stuck there for hours on this subject. So we've got Democrat Representative Rosalyn Henderson-Myers from Spartanburg, and she talked about her personal experience as a black female judge in the South.
Okay.
You've got to hear what she has to say.
Okay.
I just wanted to come up here and talk to you all from a real life standpoint. You don't know, you may look at us and we may be all put together and everything's going well or it seems to be going well, but you don't know our stories. And I'm going to tell you that it's really, really important that there be some sensitivity to these things. And I say that because looking at me, you would never know that I had death threats on my life. You would never know that as a judge, I was a judge in the state of Alabama, the first African-American judge, and so far, the only one, and it's been 20 years. But I had death threats. I had the KKK come in my courtroom on the back bench. The back two benches in my courtroom were all pure KKK members. The KKK Grand Dragon called the prosecutor before I became a judge and said, "Why do you have her as a prosecutor?" And the prosecutor, the district attorney, told him, "Well, she wins her cases." I had a 92% conviction rate as a prosecutor. I went to a very prestigious law school, Tulane Law School. I don't know if you all have heard of it. But I can tell you that it's important. These things are very, very important because they help you to understand and at least try to be a little sensitive to the types of circumstances that might make a difference and might be able to tell you perhaps how this person is thinking or what their background is. But I can tell you that these life experiences that I have had will stick with me forever and a day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about how I had to look outside the curtains of my house and see the sheriff's office down there on the street protecting me because I had such serious death threats. And so I'm just asking you all, you don't know until you've been in someone's shoes, until you've been subjected to something, you don't know how those experiences that person has gone through is affected. You don't know just by a person looking at the color of your skin. Well, you know, you're not qualified. I was overly qualified, actually. I went through 14,000 cases in 1 year. I was an extraordinary judge. but yet they could not accept the fact that I was black. And so all I'm saying is we still need these things today. We needed them back then. And I'm just asking you to think about that. Not everybody is fair-minded. Not everybody is unbiased. We still have a long way to go. And I just ask you to think about that.
That's valid.
I couldn't cut any single word of what she had to say.
No,
every word was precious.
That's valid.
So this became the theme, was this debate over DEI training and whether it should be in the budget, not in the budget, etc. The great Gilda Cobb Hunter. We haven't heard from her yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
Well, we can't go through this episode without hearing from the great GCH. So let's hear what she has to say.
Mr. Speaker and members, we've had so many conversations about DEI. And we started these conversations first in the Higher Ed Subcommittee, where because of the political environment and because we have people who rely on talking points and because we have people who are, shall we say, spinally challenged, we've been dealing with this issue about merit or lack thereof. What this amendment does is say, since we are now so concerned about race, since we claim to be concerned about gender, although the data shows that the beneficiaries of affirmative action have, for the most part, been white women.
Tell them.
I thought that perhaps we could put a little reality, a dose of reality into this conversation about DEI. For those of us of color and of a certain age, we know, because we were taught, if you want to get ahead, if you want to be successful, you better get an education, get it in your head, because then white folk can't take it out. That's what I was taught, my brothers and sisters, and most of the people I know growing up where I grew up. And so I used to be very offended by conversations like this, especially knowing people in positions of power and influence, and knowing that they only got there because of the color of their skin, white, because of who they knew, mama, daddy, because of who they played golf with and all of that. And so I used to say, you know, it is so interesting to me that white folk look at black and brown people and automatically assume that they got there because somebody gave it to them. And I want you to know that somebody forgot to tell me that all I had to do was be a black woman and things would automatically come to me.
Come on.
I didn't get that memo.
Me either.
She had a great point.
Me either.
She had a great point. Okay.
Still looking forward.
Just a few more clips left. You got
Okay.
some energy in you?
Yeah, we got
Take
it.
another shot. Take another shot. Let's do this.
Water.
Of whatever you're drinking. I'm not making any judgments. So in the middle of this deep debate where you've heard Representative Rosalyn Henderson-Myers and Representative Gilda Cobb Hunter pour their heart out, Justin Bamberg poured his heart out, who's the last person you want to hear from right
Cromer.
now? No, there's somebody even worse.
Is somebody worse?
In the middle of all this, we get old man Joe White.
Oh, I was going to say Pace. Okay.
Joe White wakes up. We haven't heard from him since day one. He wakes up and he figures he has something to say. And I challenge you. I challenge you to understand what the F he's talking about.
Okay, let me try. Let me see what he got.
Take some notes.
Mr. White's recognized.
First of all, it is tonight past my bedtime. So, I mean, I tease about that a lot, but it is tonight. But before I speak on this, I do want to say something to Ms. Cobb Hunter. She mentioned, is it real or is it Memorex? Live or is it Memorex? But there's probably a half a dozen of us in here that remember a great commercial from the 50s. And I would sing it, well, I might try to sing it, but it was a toothpaste commercial, and it was brush ya, get the new Ipana, brush ya, Ipana for your teeth. Do you remember that one? I know Bill has to. So it was a great commercial for toothpaste, and I thought about that when you mentioned Memorex this morning.
The hell? It's 10 o'clock at night. They've been there for 12 hours, and he's up there singing a song.
Nope, because he told y'all when he got up there it was past his bedtime.
Well, Jamil, would you believe that I've dug deep into the dark recesses of the internet?
You didn't find the commercial.
I found the commercial. You want to hear what the F he was singing? Here it is.
Ipana presents Bucky Beaver Space Guard.
Brusha, here's the new Ipana with the brand new flavor. It's dandy for your teeth.
This looks kind of racist to me.
It's very!
I'm gonna make cavities in everybody's teeth. Now, Beaver, I'm gonna blast holes in your teeth. Ipana!
New Ipana knocks out decay germs best of all eating brands, including fluoride toothpaste. Brusha, here's the new Ipana with the brand new flavor. Knocks out decay germs best. Fresh, clean, and minty, you'll like it. New Ipana toothpaste.
I'm like him. If you want me to be family approved, you're gonna have to play these clips long before 9. After 9, sensors are off.
We have just gone off the deep end.
What
we
in
have
the
gone
world?
off the deep end.
What in the world?
So anyhow, we have just two more clips to play, but we get to the climax of the story. Everything that we've done so far has led to these two speeches.
Okay.
So next we're going to hear from Representative Annie McDaniel, who represents Chester, Fairfield, and Richland counties.
Yay.
There's this proviso, not an amendment, but a proviso, kind of like a rule they stick into the budget, banning schools and universities from using state money to support DEI programs.
Okay.
So she raises a point of order, and she asks that the whole proviso be stricken from the budget, saying that it's not germane to the budget and it's kind of outside the rules of budget making. The objection was noted, but not ruled on. So Representative Pope, who's kind of running the show right now, by the way, Merle Smith, the House Speaker, lost his voice around the noon hour.
Oh, wow. So that's why they changed
So he's
her.
gone.
Okay.
So he's called in his backup, and that's Representative Pope.
Okay.
So Representative Pope said, I hear you. I'm going to hold on to that. We have some amendments to this proviso that I want to hear through first, and then we'll come back and rule on that. Okay. So she raised that objection. It got put on hold. So we'll put a bookmark on that. So she gets up and she offers an interesting amendment herself.
Okay.
Her amendment is simple. Do not allow funding to go to white supremacy groups.
Ooh.
Let's hear her make that argument.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment has to do with the use of state funds for white supremacy programs. Now, y'all know we have been in here 2 days now, and we've been listening to all kinds of amendments that have been put up. We know that DEI is very, very, very sensitive to many of us. But what's alarming to me as I sit here and talk about a prohibition on the use of these funds is the fact that we supported the majority party in quite a few amendments that you had up here, quite a few. And we get Bill 117, 195, and in my opinion, it's being justified illegally. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So, since there seems to be so many attacks, and I don't mean this personal to any of you in here, because every last one of you I consider a friend. But when you put bills in place that steps on the fiber of my being and the fiber of the people who are responsible for me being here, then I have to come up here and speak. I have to come up here and speak. Now, I'm going to read what white supremacy means, because I'm sure it doesn't apply to any of you in here. And I thank God for that. And when I was speaking with one of my members here who I love dearly, and I asked her, just tell me, what is the definition of DEI? You know what her definition was? Discrimination. It was discrimination. When I take my relatives, my young folk, to the State House grounds and to many other grounds, I'm seeing Confederate flag names of people who are white supremacists, and then I have to explain to them what that means. And now I'm going to have to explain to them why we want to confuse diversity, equity, and inclusion with DEI, i.e. discrimination. But when it comes to us supporting the bills that you all have and doing it proudly, and then we get slapped in the face with diversity, equity, inclusion, and we got to come up with every reason try to help our people understand why it's okay, why it's okay that we are putting together and we are implementing a bill or a statute that takes us backwards in 2025. We want to go backwards. And if you think that's what your people elected you for, then as someone said earlier, you must not be talking to them.
Come on.
She was passionate. She was passionate. So, what do you think happened to her amendment to make sure that white supremacy programs were not funded through state dollars?
It wasn't tabled. I don't think it was tabled.
A motion to table was made.
Shut up.
A vote was taken, and that amendment was tabled. The majority in that room said no to that amendment. They said no.
Who's surprised in this room? Who's surprised? Listen, I've said to you and to other people time and time again, racism is not dead. Slavery is not dead. It's shape-shifted. The hate comes from a place of fear. And until people get confident in themselves and know that the person who doesn't look like you is not necessarily going to make you lose everything you have, until they get comfortable to know that real competition is okay, until they get confident enough to know that people other than them have really earned a place in society, and until they get confident enough to know that just because you look like them don't mean you deserve that spot, we're going to still be dealing with this. And it's a shame that it took Rep. McDaniel to come out and say, well, we need to have a bill that says don't fund white supremacy groups. They can only see what it looks like from a diversity side of things. And that's out of a place of fear, and that's out of a place of trying to have control over a population.
Well, you know who didn't take this tabling very well?
Who?
And this brings us to the final speech of our episode. This is a speech that went viral around the world.
Rep. Johnson.
Representative
Jermaine Johnson.
Dr. Jermaine Johnson gave a speech that has had millions of views, that has received feedback from countries such as Norway and Finland that have reached out to him.
Wow.
He resonated with a message that, well, basically it shook the foundations.
Yeah, it was good.
Let's give him his words.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. You know, a few of my colleagues today have said, Jermaine, you've been kind of quiet. We haven't heard from you today. You've been real relaxed. You haven't really said too much. And for the most part, this budget's been going, with these amendments, just kind of typical. And then we get an amendment up there that says none of our state dollars will go to white supremacy programs. And then unfortunately, it gets killed. So I'm kind of expecting or hopeful that maybe we'll bring that last one back up. Because maybe you don't understand what you just voted on right there. You don't like being called racist in here. You hate when we use the word racist. You hate being attacked. You hate when we bring up race in everything. But then when we have an opportunity to show that we're not racist, you let me down every time. Every time. And I sit here and we talk about our families, we talk about our kids, we go on trips together, and then we talk about not funding state, not using our state dollars to go to white supremacy programs, and then we table it. You want to talk about some stuff? Let's talk about how they just took almost $7 million from the College of Charleston because they want to help black kids. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about all the amendments that are in the state budget right now to defund all the black programs that are going across the state. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about AP African American Studies that was banned from this state. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the attacks that you got going on people who don't look like you. Let's talk about it. Why do we continuously do this to our kids? Why? What is it that you're doing? What are you showing your kids? That public funds can go to white supremacy programs? We just had an issue at USC where all those kids felt scared. Matter of fact, we just had the Patriot Front on our steps last week. What are we doing here? Tell me what we're doing. Don't try to explain to me, well, I thought it was this, or nah, it's that. Nah, Jermaine, we want to see equality. We give you an opportunity every single time. And here we go again. They're defunding our institutions. They're defunding our public education system. They're defunding African American studies. What is the issue here? What are you afraid of? Which definition don't you like? The definition of diversity? You don't like equity? You don't like inclusion? Which one do you like? Which one is the problem? Which one is attacking you? Which one said you can't be proud of being white or European? Which one is it? Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's come to some sort of consensus. But look where we're at now. We have an opportunity to stand up for what's right. You're so afraid of your constituents. You're so afraid of getting primary. You're so afraid of doing the right thing. You're going to vote one way and then come in the back and apologize to me later.
Call them out.
I should have did this, Jim. I'm sorry. I'm with you. I believe this. I don't want to hear not a single apology. You showed me who you are.
Ooh.
You have shown me. I looked at that and I was like, there's no way that this body is going to table it. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I know these people. These are good people. There's no way. But yet here we are. Here we are again. And I know some of y'all in here like, man, I wish this black guy would just sit down and shut up. This is the issue that we continuously have here in this state. Do the right thing sometimes. Do the right thing. I mean, I can't believe I even had to come up here and say this. Like, I've had private one-on-one conversations with y'all. And I looked up there and I said, man, like, they're definitely not gonna kill this one. Of all the amendments we've had up here today, I said, this is gonna be all right. Because they're okay with us. We sit out there on the Portico, we smoke cigars, we hang out, we go to halls, and then here we are up here about, you know what, for not funding white supremacy programs. No, that's just a step too far. We can't put that in the budget. Nah, we can't touch that. We got to leave that one alone. I can tell you right now, you have shown me who you are. Do not come up to me telling me how you did this, you did that. I don't want to hear it. Be public about it. Don't support me in private. Support me in public. Thank you.
Well done, Doctor.
My heart just broke. My heart just broke.
When I saw it, I said they heard him. They heard him. They heard him.
They heard him, but I don't think they listened.
Oh, they don't care?
No.
This hate run deep right here in these parts.
So after all of that drama, they finally circled back to Representative McDaniel's original point of order, that section itself was not germane to the budget. So they got through the amendments. They got embarrassed by the, not funding the Ku Klux Klan amendment. They couldn't have that. So they got to the point of order about the proviso itself. And indeed, the Republican leadership did find it to be out of order. So that whole section was determined not to be germane to the budget, and it was struck down. Now, had Representative McDaniel not gotten up to issue that objection, it never would have been ruled on. And did Dr. Jermaine Johnson's argument help sway the leadership to rule the way they did? Perhaps. But it just got struck, and, well, just the fact cannot be erased about that amendment, though. You can't erase that fact. That it doesn't mean the whole discussion about DEI is dead. That's just within the context of the budget. They've got other bills floating around there that they're having debates on this very week about striking DEI from all public institutions. So they're right back at it. But that was just one small victory that we can say that they had during the budget event.
Good gracious.
So that wrapped up the second day.
Oh, Lord.
Are you ready to talk about day 3?
Yeah, let's go.
You're sounding weak.
Oh.
Find some strength. Find some strength, Jamil.
Okay.
All right. Day 3 actually started a few minutes later because they hit the midnight hour. And what I thought was interesting is that because they entered into a new day, they actually shut down business. They closed the proceedings before the strike of midnight. Then at 12:01, they re-engaged. They did the Pledge of Allegiance, had another prayer,
all over
started
again.
day 3 all anew, a new book, a new record.
Wow.
And they finished off their business, at which they just spent maybe 21 minutes.
Yeah.
They voted on the budget. They passed the budget. They gave a happy birthday to somebody, a couple other recognitions, and then they got out of there. And they didn't come back to work for the rest of the week, for the most part.
They shouldn't have.
It was a long, long night.
Godly Bill.
Oof.
Bill.
And we, too, are calling it a night. As that's a wrap for this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. We thank you for making it this far into this epic program. But were you not entertained? Were you not entertained, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we hope you enjoyed what you heard. Please take a quick minute and leave us a rating and a review of the show, only if it's good. We really want to know what you think. If you do, we'll make sure to put on a pot of coffee for you the next time we drop a mega episode on you like this.
Because you'll need it.
If you are a blue dot in the Red Sea, keep the faith, keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of work and dedication.
Yeah.
I close with this quote from South Carolina Senator Strom Thurmond. Who filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1957 when he spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quote the entire text of his speech.
He is not.
It takes 88 pages of 3 columns of the tiniest font you've ever seen. I actually looked it up. But no, actually, I looked at random in this thing, and I came across one quote that I thought was really, really odd. So it starts off, Mr. President, I rise to speak against the so-called Voting Right Bill, H.R. 6127. 68 pages later, he says, the Southern white man does more for the Negro than any other man in any part of the country. And that's a mentality that has changed little in nearly 70 years.
That's heavy. The end.
The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media, LLC, and is copyright 2025, all rights reserved.